friends. Welcome back to Calvary Connection. Glad to be with you in this podcast once again. I'm Jeremiah Holst, one of your pastors, and of course, we've got Pastor Susan with us as well.
Yep. Susan Chernahoy, another one of your pastors.
Indeed. And Vicar Jami will be joining us from time to time during this Lenten walk as well. It's so good to be back with you guys, having these conversations, and we are excited about so many things that are happening during this Lenten season at Calvary. This is one of them, the podcast, but there's a lot else going on too, right, Pastor Sue?
You know, there is a lot going on. Yeah, we've got a couple of worship services on Wednesday at noon and 6:30. Going to have a little soup and study with me. We're going to look at these texts that we're going to be doing on the podcast after the Wednesday noon service and just before the 6:30 service. Kind of excited about that. Oh,
sure.
That's right. And there's some daily devotions that are also other ways to dig into these great texts that we're going to be talking about with you today.
Absolutely. And so this podcast series that we're doing during Lent this year is going to, as Pastor Susan mentioned, follow the texts that we're using for our Wednesday night worship services. And Vicar Jami will be presenting us with a wonderful sermon series about them. But this is going to be just a time for us to be in some more deep conversation around these texts. Because, man, these are rich.
Yeah.
You know, there is so much that we can take from these as we look at our theme of Lent Unbound, listening to God, listening to each other. Wow, there's good stuff here.
There is really good stuff here. And so we have together really found some wonderful stories about listening to God. Mm-hmm. And by listening to God, we're also listening to each other. And so we're anxious to hear you respond to Pastor Jeremiah or myself or Vicar Jami. Where are you hearing God speaking?
Yeah. And
speaking to you, speaking to the life and ministry of Calvary. It's an exciting time, isn't it, Pastor Jeremiah?
It really is.
Yep.
It really is. Well, let's not dither about it anymore, shall we? Let's dive into this.
Let's see. Okay.
So we've got Luke chapter 2, verses 41 through 52 is what we're going to be hearing from Vicar Jami tomorrow night. So you want to read the text?
I would love to read the text.
Let's take a look at it.
It's from the second chapter of Luke. You can find it in your Bibles, 41 through 52. Now every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when Jesus was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents didn't know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and their friends. When they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. And after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know that I must be in my Father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in years, and in divine and human favor. There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
That is it's such a unique story in the Gospels, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the only narrative story in all four of the Gospels in Scripture that we have of Jesus when he's not a baby or after his ministry has begun, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Everything else is like he's born and then he's 30 years old and starting his ministry.
Exactly.
So here we have the snapshot of him at 12.
Yeah.
Huh.
6th grader?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6th grader.
Oh.
I remember being a 6th grader. I don't think I would have stayed behind in a city all by myself,
No.
but holy cow.
You know, yeah, he's 12. And also, what I like about it is he's so much a part of his family.
Yeah.
I mean, they are going to the Passover, and it says now every year. And
Yeah.
so you think about Jesus and his parents, that they have made this journey to Jerusalem for the Passover, and probably for Jesus 12 times.
Yeah.
Every year they went.
Yeah. And also that it's this family trip, really. I mean, they talk about how it's almost a caravan, right, of folks that are heading out, going back after the Passover to Jerusalem. That's something that really sticks out to me as a father, as a parent of a child, that they just assumed that Jesus was with that group of travelers, right? They didn't check to see if he was going.
No.
And until they had gone a whole day, they didn't start looking for him.
No.
I mean, that blows my mind. How different that perspective is from what I could do. I mean, I would already be pulling my hair out, but that doesn't apply to me. But I'd be going nuts if I didn't know where Bjorn was in like an hour, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they went a day's journey. And then thinking about what that must have felt like for them.
Yeah.
After they realize that Jesus isn't with any of their relatives, they can't find him anywhere, at the end of the day, oof.
Yeah, and and I like the specifics in this. I mean, so they went a day's journey, and then they started looking for him among their relatives. So it's their family. They're there. So there's a larger group there, and they had friends. I like that too. I mean, so that they were journeying with more than just the three of them.
Yeah.
And so then, I mean, then they had to go back.
And to stay with that thread for just another moment, it has me, your thought process of being with friends and family, thinking about what that would have been like as that yearly trip that you spend where you get together with all your friends and all your family. Yeah. That must have been something they really looked forward to, right? That's almost like that Thanksgiving, but with an even larger group. That every year we find all of our friends and all of our family and we take this big old trip together.
Yeah.
And then he's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I was just thinking from this line also, to think of a 12-year-old, which is Jesus, then making the decision not to return.
Yeah.
Now, that's a pretty powerful decision that he made as a young boy.
That is an adolescent thing to do right there.
Yeah, and that he would stay in the temple.
Yeah.
Or go back to the temple.
Yeah.
And that somehow, even at this age, he knew that there was something else about his calling or his purpose in life. Because, I don't know, I think it would be fun to head back out on the road and be with your relatives and your
cousins
friends.
And everybody playing games.
Yeah. But he stays.
Yeah.
I mean, we hadn't talked about this piece.
But I like that angle.
I wonder about that.
And I think and this is something we did talk about, is that a lot of this really brings into relief how we think about Jesus, right? I mean, when I think about Jesus, I don't usually picture a 12-year-old kid. I think about the adult Jesus, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and we all often think about Jesus as almost this total stand-in for God, right? That Jesus knows everything and is all-powerful, but that's not actually the incarnation, right? That it's, yes, fully God and also fully human. And so recognizing that at the age of 12, Jesus doesn't know all the answers.
Right.
He's going to the temple to learn.
Yeah.
Not just to explain and teach, but to learn. And so it's this idea that even the Messiah is learning.
That's right. And that he wanted to be in the presence of those teachers.
Yeah.
Because he's not telling them. He's listening to them.
He's listening to them.
And, and we talked earlier, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time, but to think about, why did it take his parents 3 days to find him? Why didn't they go to the temple first?
Where else do you look in Jerusalem for a 12-year-old boy?
Yeah, and that's, we'll never know. But
I wonder if there was like the equivalent of a local movie theater or video arcade for first century time. Like, let's go find him there.
But of course, whenever I hear the 3 days,
yes,
that's where I go. And so even with Jesus on the cross, it took 3 days.
Yeah.
And so maybe there is something about in this culture in which we want things to be instantaneous, that it says, take some time.
Yeah.
And his parents took time. But now he's in the temple and he's sitting among the teachers.
Yeah. listening. And I think that image to me is a really valuable one.
It is.
Because the idea of being in conversation with the community, talking about the divine, talking about God, talking about the ways that God interacts with the world that God loves, that image of him speaking and listening and just that give and take of conversation really is almost a model for us to use for what it means to be in Christian community, right?
Yeah, and to sit at the feet of teachers.
Yeah.
And in this season when we're all being invited to listen to God, and of course this is listening to his teachers. Well, who are those teachers in your life? Or who is it that you want to sit and listen to?
Yeah.
I wonder what they were talking about. And also, and he also was asking them questions. Now, what's on the heart of a 12-year-old named Jesus? I don't know.
Well, I mean, that ties into like our 12-year-olds we have in confirmation,
I know
right?
it. I know it.
I mean, that's something that I often say is that one of the things that I love about teaching confirmation is that this age, 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old, they're not quite at the point where they're afraid to ask the questions that are hard, right?
Yeah.
Often as we get older, we as adults feel like, oh, I shouldn't ask those because I already should know the answers to those questions. I'll look foolish if I ask those questions.
That's right.
12-year-olds will ask the questions.
Yeah.
And that is such a valuable thing for community at large, is to retain that ability to just ask and be in conversation and sit with the unknown answer.
Yeah, and for those of us who are a few years beyond 12, maybe this is a calling for us to return to that 12-year-old within all of us. You know, to realize that whether you are 12 or 3 or 85 or 52 or 95, that we are always like that 12-year-old Jesus, needing to be sitting at the feet of the teachers, listening and asking questions. I love that model of curiosity.
Oh, gosh.
There's always more that we can learn. And you know, as you sit with confirmation students, you're right. They're wonderful teachers. And I get flipped and realize I learn from their questions, and I just learn from their energy and their thinking.
You saying that about curiosity really tripped something for me. I really believe that the more we can nurture that virtue of curiosity, both in the church and just in the world in general, we will be better for it. Yep. You know, I mean, being able to wonder about things, being able to chew on things and noodle on things together, even when we don't or can't know the answers to things, there is so much value to be had in that. And I love that this is modeled there, that curiosity about what the world is about, what God is up to in the world about. It's good. It's just good.
Yeah. What teachers are you who are you sitting at the feet of these days?
Yeah. You know, I mean, looking at, for me, it's always going back to books. You know, I love to read so much, and looking at historical context is always something that is really valuable to me.
Yeah.
One of my favorite theologians, for lack of a better term, would be Julian of Norwich. Right?
Oh,
and that's my more recent one, is going back to some of her works and reading through that English mysticism of her time, of like, all will be well and all will be well, all manner of thing will be well, finding the grace and love of God in the midst of darkness. And I think, to me, that sits in a lot of the way that the world has been for a lot of people lately.
Yeah.
And especially in this time of Lent, looking to some of those pieces of wisdom to ask the questions that might be coming out of her writing has been for me.
Yeah.
So, how about for you?
You know, and I think one of in some ways, my teachers right now are you who live in this area, and to sit at your feet and listen to your, you know, as a staff, as people who have been here for generations, tell me about your life. Tell me about Calvary. And really most recently, and it's on my mind right now, is I'm also listening to the community. And so this morning,
Yeah.
I got to meet Ron, who's the manager at the Senex, and to actually sit at his feet as my teacher, learning about the travelers who come through, who drive by Calvary every day. So, it's an open book. These are new individuals, and but the curiosity and to imagine life as the manager of a Senex station on the corner of 71 and 2. Fascinating teachers.
Absolutely.
And then to somehow talk about the faith. It's just kind of, those are my teachers.
That's
right
why
now.
we're here.
I like it.
That's why we're here. Lent
I
Unbound,
like it.
listening to each other, listening to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything more? I think we've kind of
I
gone
think
into it.
I mean, that's a lot of good stuff. The only thing that I would point out, too,
Yeah.
is in verse 51, his mother treasured all these things in her heart.
Yeah.
A continuation that we hear that as well when the shepherds are there at his birth.
Yeah.
The idea of Mary especially just kind of taking everything in and witnessing with awe the work of God that's happening in Jesus as he grows both in wisdom and in years, as this text says, and just the wonder that is there. I sit with that too.
Yeah, and how, and that as she's treasuring, Jesus is increasing, as you said. That Jesus himself is increasing in wisdom and is growing up. I think that's what it means, in years.
Yep.
And then that he's gaining favor in the eyes of God and in the eyes of community.
Yeah.
Very fascinating.
I love it.
To think about that. And so as we conclude each of our podcasts each week, I invite you to really share and to think about, where are you hearing and listening to God in your life? And I know that Pastor Jeremiah, myself, Vicar Jami, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, we would.
And we've got phone numbers, and we've also got some emails. And so we'd love to have you ponder with us.
And if you want to be part of this conversation, talk about any of the things that we brought up today, or have other ideas for yourself, feel free to email us, podcast@calvarybemidji.org. Maybe we can bring in some of those things to future conversations that we have.
Yeah.
Always looking to be part of the conversation together.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Vicar Jami has to say about this tomorrow when he preaches.
That'll be great.
It's a great text. It's a great text.
Yeah, good to be with you today.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Thank you all, Calvary. We love you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.